Please welcome the next presentation entitled Effect on Work Hours on COVID-19 Infection Among Healthcare Workers in the Philippines, a cross-sectional study, presented by Mr. Neil Andrew Kiamco Aliazas.
Good afternoon, I'll be presenting the study entitled Effect of Work Hours on COVID-19 Infection among Healthcare Workers in the Philippines, a cross-sectional study. 2 years after its first case in the country of the COVID-19 pandemic, continues to reform the Philippine healthcare system, leading healthcare workers to represent 25.7% of COVID-19 cases in the country. According to the Department of Labor and Employment of the country.
Excuse me, Mr. Neil Andrew.
Hello?
There is a slight technical problems about your speakers. Is it convenient for you to take off the mask?
It's good.
Thank you so much.
All right. Okay, apologies. All right, so 2 years after its first case in the country, the COVID-19 pandemic continues to overrun the whole healthcare system. Healthcare workers represent 24.7% of COVID-19 cases in the country. According to the Department of Labor and Employment in the country, hospital trips must not exceed 8 hours a day to cause detrimental effect on the health and productivity of healthcare workers. With this, our study aims to investigate the possible effects of long work hours as an occupational risk factor COVID-19 infection among healthcare workers, the purpose of improving the overall working conditions and promoting the safety of our healthcare workers as a direct response to COVID-19. To start the work of the comparative cross-sectional study, a measure the relationship between our dependent variable, which was defined as the presence or absence of infection confirmed with swab tests, and the independent variable, which is the length of work hours. In this, we also included our occupational risk factors to COVID-19 infection. Hello, can I be heard clearly? COVID-19 infection is to be to account for concerning variables biology progression. The sample that we have completed study.
Right, so for the sample population for the study was gathered through purposive sampling and consisted of healthcare workers of at least 18 years old actively working in secondary or tertiary hospital in the Philippines between January to June 2021, directly attending and being exposed to confirmed COVID-19 patients. To achieve a powerful statistical data, 40% risk of infection and with and without longer working hours respectively, our calculated sample size was 182 with 91 participants per comparative group. So eligible participants were sent an online survey via Google Forms. Chi-square test was used to compare categorical variables to reveal the distribution of participants in terms of longer or shorter hours. There were no interactions and or subgroups explored, and the study did not focus on testing a trend. There was also no missing data from the data set that was analyzed using data. The results of binary logistic regressions were presented with odds ratio and 95% confidence intervals. As for the results, we were able to gather 304 participants, of which 230 were eligible. The participants were located in different parts of the Philippines. For the descriptive analysis, 60% of male healthcare workers and 59.9% of female healthcare workers worked longer hours. Mean age was slightly higher among healthcare workers working short hours, while top medical professionals with most toxic schedules include nurses, 77.6%, who are working longer hours, followed by medical doctors with 60.8%, while 59.6% are those of registered medical technologists. There is a significant difference observed in the hours worked overtime between those working shorter and longer hours, with 62.9% of those working shorter hours. 44.4% of the healthcare workers, on the other hand, reported an average exposure to COVID patients of more than 50 times, while 66.1% of longer hours. As for binary logistic regression, after controlling for the effects of sex, age, average exposure to COVID patients, sufficiency of PPE supply, and accommodation of COVID patients, we have found that healthcare workers working longer hours were 1.08 times more likely to be infected as compared to those healthcare workers working shorter hours, but with a p-value of 0.08. Female healthcare workers were 1.87 times more likely to be infected than male. In addition, healthcare workers that lack sufficient PPE supply were 1.8 times more likely to be infected. And lastly, healthcare workers exposed to COVID patients daily were 7.4 times more likely to be infected with SARS-CoV-2 compared to those healthcare workers exposed only once a week with a p-value of 0.023. For this, the study recommends that administrators of the hospitals lead a legislative level exploring these findings and investigate the strategies in healthcare workforce in the Philippines. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very informative. Now, do we have any questions from our judges?
So since there are several factors that can affect on the risk of COVID-19 infections, like the working experience or the history of vaccinations, so have you adjusted, using those factors and adjusted in the statistical analysis of your data?
Excuse me, Mr. Neil. I think your speakers are still turned off. Could you please turn on your speakers?
Hello, am I clear
Thank
now?
you. Thank
Yes.
you.
All right.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much. As for the question, with the advent of vaccinations at the latter part of 2020 to 2021, we haven't adjusted with the frequency of how many vaccines were administered to the patients. However, we are putting it into our recommendations to actually include those patients who receive vaccines, applying for those affected with longer and shorter working hours. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Do our judges have any comments or any questions?
Thank you so much. Now, please give a round of applause